So as I said before, this retreat is entirely for you. It's your discipline to care for yourself enough to open to something that you may not be used to doing. In our society, very few people are used to doing this unless they attend retreats at a retreat center. They're not really familiar with something so simple as simply being quiet, not letting input come in or go out. So I'm here to give you some guidance, some help, and support if you have any questions later to ask. And as I said before, if you ask a question, it's generally a question that almost everybody else has, even though it might not feel like that. So it's helping everyone else. Your questions help everyone else. And I was also talking about walking meditation because you're sitting. This is a silent retreat is a meditation retreat. So most of the time you're sitting or lying down in meditation. And in between that, it's good to be able to get up and move and walk just for health reasons for your body so it doesn't get stiff. And so if you do that with the same intention and the same energy that you have in your meditation practice, which you can do. This is what we do in Zen practice is we intersperse our sitting with walking meditation, and there is no separation between the two things. It's like you're sitting on the cushion, but you're moving, your body's moving. And the other thing is that your body is moving, but you're not moving. This is something to notice when you're aware of this. It's your awareness that notices it, your consciousness, and consciousness is not moving. The body is moving, consciousness is not moving. And some people have told me that they have some pain when they walk. And if this is so, you realize after a while that consciousness, awareness is not experiencing pain, is not having any pain, even though the body is. But consciousness is not experiencing any pain at all. It's entirely free of any pain that the body has. Any physical pain that the body has, consciousness is untouched by it, is completely free of it. Just as when the body is moving and walking, consciousness is not moving. It's staying exactly where it is. It sort of feels like you're going for a ride. You're like in a car or some vehicle and you're just observing that it's moving, but you're not moving. You're staying exactly still. This is the stillness, the silence of awareness, of consciousness. It's aware of everything, all sound, everything, but it itself is not affected by that. It itself is not sound. It's always still, unchanging, not in a boring way. It's aware of everything, so how could it ever be bored? Everything that's going on in the universe, it's aware of. And while you're meditating, thoughts may come and they will, but awareness is not thinking. Awareness is not having a thought. Consciousness is not having a thought. It's just aware of them. If you have a thought that's disturbing or creates fear in you, awareness is not afraid at all. It's totally unaffected by that. It's just aware that there's a thought of fear and that the body is very connected to the mind. So the body is going to experience things that relate to fear if there's a fear thought. But awareness is not afraid. Awareness is not affected by that at all. In the most slightest way, it's not affected. This is self-realization. This is knowing yourself. It's a wonderful thing that it's completely free of all of this. So in our lives, believing that we're a person, all the conditioned thoughts that we see the world through and see ourselves through, we often look for safety, security. There is no security like self-realization because you know yourself as pure consciousness, pure awareness itself, which is unaffected by anything that happens to the body. Any pain, illness, hunger, anything. It's safe and secure in a way that our mind can't even understand what safety or security is because it only knows thoughts. It only knows relative safety or relative security. It doesn't know absolute security and safety. And that is what awareness is. It's not relative. It's absolute. It's absolute truth. Long before there was a universe, before there was an Earth, solar system and universe, and multi-universes, there was this. It's always been here. It has no beginning or end. Because it has no beginning, it has no end. But that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Of course it does. In fact, if it didn't exist, then none of this would exist. No universe, no matter, no Big Bang, none of it. Everything depends on this. This is the source of everything. And we realize this, we discover this, experience this, not by trying, because any trying is only trying to find something of our mind, a thought or belief. And this is not that. It's before all thought. So how can we find something that's before all thought? How can we find something without trying to find it, without making any attempt at all, any effort? We let go of what's not it. We just shift our attention away from what's not it. And you can begin with the body, not to let go of the body, but instead of focusing on your thoughts, focus on your breath. or the sensations in the body, or the feel of air on your skin, sound of a breeze rustling trees, the feel of the temperature of the air, whether it's hot or cold or somewhere in the middle. It's what that feels like without resistance, just noticing, just bringing your attention to it. And likewise, notice the breath is moving by itself, doesn't need any effort on your part. The body is breathing perfectly without any help from you. In fact, so many things that the body is doing you don't even know about. They're all happening without your awareness of it, without your personal mental awareness. Awareness itself is aware of it, but your mind is not. And still it's happening. It's working perfectly. If it were not working perfectly, you would not be alive. All this is going on, and so much more than even all our scientific knowledge is aware of, just in a body itself. So to be aware of this, we stop trying, stop searching, stop seeking, stop trying to wake up. We just let go of everything. Enlightenment, awareness, consciousness, everything. Ourself, body, world, God. Just let it all go. These are just thoughts. What's here without any thought? Be curious. And you are. It's natural. All humans are curious. That's good. But be curious without trying to find the answer in a thought, without trying to understand anything. Just allow it to be as it is, beyond understanding. What's here that's not a thought? So this is a good stepping off point to enter into this silence, enter into this stillness, and the transmission from this can help give a little more energy to this Jariki energy. And you can also do this without this help. You have this energy in you already. This focus and concentration. I want to give you an opportunity to, again, to ask questions about anything that's going on or any support you might need or help or answering a question or just curiosity about what's going on as you've been doing this now for a number of hours or into the second day. And I wanted to ask this before the too much of the transmission because it tends to quiet everybody's questions down to non-existence. So you may have a question before we start doing it, and then a question may arise afterwards. So I want to open this up before it gets too deep so that you can ask that question, and then we'll end up going back into that. And if you don't have any questions, then we'll just go back into it. So, hi, Caddy.
Yeah, it's Katie.
Katie, sorry, Katie.
Oh, I have a question,
Sure.
and it's about I live in a city, and there's lots of trucks and cars
Uh,
and people. Like there's a jazz music this afternoon. There was like a lion dance. It's so loud, and I was wondering if you have any um, suggestions. I don't have air conditioning. It's summer, and I have to open my windows just for air circulation.
yeah, yeah. That's a very good question. Very good, perfect question. And many people would have that same question. I mean, here where I am, sometimes I remember one time I was having uh, a dozen people here. We were doing a meditation, and a car parked right outside the Zendo, just not very much distance from the street, and had like really loud speaker system in their car, and they were playing a rap song. I think it was about killing the police or something. Anyways, it was kind of violent, but it had this very heavy bass sound, boom, boom, and you could really feel the house was almost. It felt like it was shaking. You know, it was so loud. And what I did with it was I used that to simply open to it, to surrender to that sound, to just open to it because it's there, it's here, right? To not resist it and just open to it. And then my own experience was that I ended up loving it. It's not that I wanted to go out and buy the record or anything, but in that moment that it was there, I loved it because it was there. And then afterwards, I used it as a teaching for the other people who were being disturbed by it, you know, that you could open to it and then it changes everything. It changes everything. So in a way, having these noise of the jazz music and the trucks and maybe jackhammers, they're not the most pleasant sound, and police sirens and all that, or people arguing things that we don't really want, that we resist. It's actually a wonderful practice to have those things and to let go to them, to surrender to them. You know, sometimes, well, when I moved to the artist building that I lived in before I came to Sedona, um, I didn't realize this, but at at 2 a.m. to 6 a.m., this freight train is parking with scrap metal, right? So it's very, very heavy, just many, many tons. And it makes this squealing, this really loud squealing sound, and then banging when the cars come together. It's extremely loud, like an explosion. And that goes on all from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. And I thought, oh my God, I, I've got this place, but I can't sleep here. What am I going to do? So for a while it was so loud I resisted it and I couldn't sleep and I had to go to sleep at 6 a.m., you know, when it stopped. And it disrupted my day in order to do that. And finally I just accepted it. I just accepted it. And then it was no problem. Did it stop? No. It goes from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. It's probably still doing it now, you know? But it's amazing how you can adjust to things if you accept it. If you don't accept it, it's a problem. And that's true for everything. There's a beautiful Zen koan that relates to this. There's a new monk enters into the monastery, and after he's there for a while, he goes to the Zen master and he says, you know, there's in the summer, there's no air conditioning or anything. I didn't even have air conditioning in those days, but it's really hot and I'm just sweating and I can't concentrate and meditate because I'm so uncomfortable and so hot. And in the winter, there's no heat, so I'm freezing and I can't focus on meditating because I'm freezing. And what can I do? And the Zen master said, you need to go to the place where there's no heat or cold. And the monk thought, is that like your place? Do you have where you live? Do you have like no heater or cold? Do you have special a heater or something? And he said, so where do I find this place? And the Zen master said, when heat comes, let heat kill you. When cold comes, let cold kill you. What does that mean? It means let it kill your ideas of heat and cold because we have an idea of heat and then we suffer. It's too hot. I'm just sweating. It's too hot. But there's nothing wrong with sweating. It's like your individual air conditioning built into your body. It's a good thing. It's healthy. But if you have an idea about it, then it may be not so good and you don't like it. But if you don't have any idea, heat is just how the temperature feels on your skin and you can relax into it and learn to love it. Like in the moment that loud rap music was playing, I loved it just because it was here. When cold comes, I didn't like cold. I lived in New England. It was very cold in the winter. And I often, when it was really cold, I didn't like being outside for a long time in it. And at some point, I just accepted it. I accepted it because I had a young daughter who was like, oh, I think she was only a couple of months old. But I would carry her in this thing in my, like a backpack, but it was in the front and like a papoose. And I would carry her outside and she loved it. She would, when the cold wind came, she would put her face to the wind and smile. And I wanted to go inside, but she was liking it so much she didn't want to go inside. So I stayed out there with her. And I thought, if she can do it, she's not even a year old, then surely I can do it too. For her sake, I will embrace it. And sure enough, I ended up doing the same, putting my face into the wind and feeling it's invigorating. There's a wonderful feeling about cold that I was missing because I had thoughts about cold, that it wasn't good. And when I just accepted it, it became good. It became wonderful. So that's what we do with the loud sounds. We accept it and we practice with that because it's not always easy. Sometimes the sound comes like, well, it's a very unpleasant sound, like fingernails on a blackboard. People don't like that sound, or jackhammers. I don't particularly like a jackhammer sound. They're very, very loud, or police sirens. So whatever the sound is that you're resisting, saying, I want quiet, be quiet, be quiet. Instead of doing that, embrace it. Allow the sound to come into the silence. Allow silence to accept this sound, this very loud sound. Allow silence to love this sound. Just not resist it. Just accept it as it is. It's like, oh, sound, without knowing what it is. Because any knowing that we have of this sound, any naming of the sound is going to create some resistance in us, right? Doesn't it? Katie, it creates some resistance. So when we stop resisting it, everything changes. And at some point, the silence can actually become strange, but louder than the sound, no matter what the sound is. The silence can overwhelm that sound, and no matter how loud the sound is, we're listening to the silence because the silence is actually everywhere all the time. The sound is not everywhere all the time. The silence is. All sound comes out of silence, returns to silence, and exists in silence. So silence is always here, but we get distracted by sound. Distracted by sound. It gets our attention. And that's the way it is in the human body. We listen to sound because, say, many years ago, we might be in the jungle and we need to listen to the sound of a tiger. We listen to the sound of branches breaking, that a large animal is able to break the sound of, break branches. So we listen to that. Oh, what's that? Is that dangerous? It keeps us alive. It's kept us alive to pay attention to sound. But it doesn't help keep us alive to pay attention to silence. Silence is always here. It's not, it doesn't have a survival mechanism to it as listening to sound does. So we're trained and conditioned, and even before our society conditioning, to listen to sound, to have it get our attention. So we're always going to do that. But we can we can accept it, embrace it, as with everything else. I'm not particularly totally accepting of mosquitoes or little no-see-um biting insects, because the itching of the body and all that. But when I don't do that, then I'm suffering. Then I'm having a problem. When I accept them fully, I have no problem with them. They're just one other creature on this earth, magnificent as everything is, and not separate from me. And they are able to get some nourishment from my blood, from the blood of my body. Why should I deprive them of that? You know? So when I don't resist, I don't have a problem. Same with the itching. Do I have a problem with the itching? If I resist it, yes. If I don't resist it, no, I don't have any problem with it. It's just what is. It doesn't bother me at all. So that's the answer of what to do. And it's a wonderful question. And you're in a situation where you don't have the air conditioning, the windows are open, so you're getting a lot of that sound coming in. As here in my Zendo, I live in the middle of Sedona, and not out in the country somewhere. It's like, a town with police sirens going on, fire engines, neighbors doing whatever they're doing, sometimes using chainsaws or hammering, or, it just sounds. So I embrace that all, and I let that all be part of the experience, part of the sound, not something separate from it. Just, oh, that too, that too, this too, whatever it is, this too. Except I don't want to push anything away. So it's a wonderful practice to do this. If we live in a hermetically sealed ashram where we're not hearing any sound at all other than the sound of the bell, and the rest of it is just pure quiet, if there is such a place, we when we left, we would not be able to sit in meditation because there would be sound everywhere and we wouldn't know how to deal with it. So it's a blessing to have the sound, to be able to use it as something to practice with. I love your picture that you have there, Katie. That's a looks like the Northern Lights. It's fascinating.
It's the background. It's very dark. So even I have my camera on, I can't see myself because it's so dark.
Oh, well, that's an amazing picture, though. It's mesmerizing. It's very beautiful. I've only seen the Northern Lights once, and it was incredible, but it wasn't as good as this one. This is even better. And I'm sorry to on the recording, nobody can see it. So
Thank you
yeah, yeah.
for your answer.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, the acceptance. Yes.
Yes, yeah. Just open and embrace whatever comes. And while you're doing it, let go of your thought about it. So if a thought comes that, it's a traffic sound and you go, oh, that's traffic sound. Let go of that and say, I don't know what that is. You do know, right? Your mind knows it's labeled it and it knows it's traffic sound. Everybody knows that. But in this case, I'm saying, say, I don't know. Those are just my thoughts. I don't really know what it is. I don't really know anything. Those are just thoughts. And I'm interested in truth. So I'm going to, for this moment, let go of the name traffic. Let go of the name sound. Let go of the name noise. Let go of every word we have about it. And then see how much better it feels to you, how much more wonderful it is without any labeling, without any thought, without any description, without any understanding. That really it's just all part of the mystery. Everything is. And somehow that will make it much easier to accept and embrace and even love. It will just happen that way. When we have thoughts and names and labels of things, then we can resist it. Why? Because it's something different from us. It's separate from us. The sound of traffic's not me. I'm a body. I'm a person. The sound of traffic is machinery, people in cars. I'm not in a car. That's all different, separate from me. So I can push that away, resist it, as if that would do anything, right? Because it doesn't. Unless you shut the window, you're going to get that sound. There's nothing. Wishing it weren't there and resisting it isn't going to make it go away. It will just make it seem worse, just make you suffer. So when you instead say, I don't know what it is, I don't know. Those are just names and labels. Traffic, it means nothing. I don't know what it really is. And as that falls away, which is an illusion, the illusion of thought, when that falls away, suddenly it feels much better. You embrace it as you. It's all not separate from you. You don't know what you are. You don't know what traffic is. You don't know what the world is. So in that way, we naturally accept it. It's a good technique to practice with. It's a wonderful technique. Then you find you can be in the middle of Times Square, honking cab drivers and all the flashing lights and all that stuff going on, and sit there in complete peace. And it's wonderful to be able to do that in a place like that. It's easier out in the woods where the only sound you just have the chirping of birds and the rustling of leaves. Yeah, it's pretty easy to accept that. It sounds wonderful. We're happy to have that. It's the things that we don't accept that are the practice that we work on accepting. And that's a great opportunity to do that. Yeah. If we want a silent retreat and we want everything to be completely silent, we're going to have a hard time in this world. Even if you do go out into the country, then the birds will bother you. It's like, shut up, I want quiet. We're never going to find a place in the world that's completely quiet. But I understand being in the city, and having those sounds, because those are sounds that we don't think of as pleasant. Some of it. I mean, most of my family lived in New York City, and when I would, go to visit them and stay there, I actually liked the sound of traffic. It was very comforting to me. Even the police sirens. Somehow, I don't know why, it was kind of comforting. It helped me sleep. Strange. But jackhammering, not so much. That was, yeah. So good, wonderful question, and a wonderful opportunity to practice with this. And being able to practice with this now means that the rest of the time you can, after a while, easily let go of your resistance and it won't bother you at all anymore. Won't be any different than being out in the country. Just different sounds, that's all. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you, Peter.
If anyone else has a question, or if Katie, you have another question, feel free to do it because you can unmute yourself. So, and if not, we'll continue with the silent transmission, which is it's an energetic help to open to this. What's already in you, what's always in you. It's important to realize that whatever energy you feel is in you. Everything is in you. The whole universe is in you. And how we discover this, how we directly realize this, is not resisting, not naming and creating separation by believing thoughts. That's not helping us. We don't want to push away thoughts either. So accept thoughts, fine. This is how we learn to deal with them. We see them come, see them pass, see what happens when they're here without any resistance to them and no attachment. Attachment means we get lost in the story. We think, oh, this thought's important. This must be true. That's an attachment. We don't want to do that. We just want to notice that they're here. And then they become harmless. Not important, not unimportant, not anything we can say, just here. Just the same way we deal with sound. We take away the name and form and anything we know, and we realize, I don't know what a thought is, but something's here. I don't need to know. And just experience. And bring our focus to what's not a thought. Just as in sound, there is a thought that says, that's too loud. That shouldn't be there. Shouldn't be like this. Should be quieter. And those thoughts are resistance. That's why we have a problem with it. Without that thought, there is no problem. There's just sound. Without the content of a thought or what a thought is, there's no problem. Just thoughts. And all this other stuff that's here. The breath, the body, sensations, temperature, hearing, feeling, sensing, seeing. All this stuff just going on. And the vast infinite space that's always here. And underneath that, the silence and stillness that's always present, even when we're not aware of it. And in our society, most people are not. When you find this silence and stillness in the midst of a lot of noise, a lot of sound, that's very good. And you can find it anywhere and everywhere. Another example that might be useful, if you're living in a house with other people and you're doing a silent retreat, but they're not, and they want to maybe watch a movie or something, and you can hear it from your room. It's a distraction if you get involved in what's going on in the movie or think like, oh, I'd like to watch that movie too. I wish I were doing that, but I want to do the retreat. And you're thinking about these things or listening to the movie and imagining what's going on in it. And to stay with the silence and stillness, just don't be distracted. Whereas there's just sounds. Focus on the silence and stillness, not on the content of the movie. Just as you don't focus on the content of your thought, just the fact that there is a thought, that's all. You don't need to get involved in the content of it, the story of it. Just notice there's a thought. Because that's what the silence and stillness of your true nature, of your awareness, of consciousness is doing. It's not getting involved in the thought. It's just noticing that there's a thought, noticing there's a sound. That way you can stay in the silence and stillness no matter what's happening around you. I mean, I gave instructions not to use media and do that because then you're putting your attention on it. You wouldn't, what would be the point of paying attention to, you know, a video or something on media if you were not giving it any attention? There would be no point in it. And you don't want to give it attention. You don't want to feed it with attention. You want your attention to come into this stillness and silence and peace. Thank you, my friends. We'll see you tomorrow.